Staying hydrated is very important. However, that's not what we're talking about today. Today we're going to prepare a brand new batch for our cats. Pixie, come help! Hello! Pixie will be helping us today. Today's recipe was developed especially to cater to the needs of our subscribers, as in many of our comments we received questions about recipe that doesn't include any pork. So, as good YouTubers do, we obviously provide. The base of today's recipe is chicken breast and diced beef. Now, one thing I want to mention before we move on to the rest of the ingredients is that we wouldn't make a batch just out of the chicken breast because they have very little taurine. The reason we combine it with all the other ingredients that you're going to see in a minute is because they contain enough taurine to supplement the cats. An adult cat should eat between 35 and 55 milligrams of taurine per day, and this batch will supply the correct amount. Just to put it out there, if you're going to experiment with your own batches and with different ratios, make sure that if you're using chicken breast like we are today, you're supplementing the taurine content. My little helper is here. She will be checking the quality of the batch. And let's move on to the ingredients now. As mentioned before, we're using the chicken breast. For today's recipe, we're going to need 1.6 kilograms. Again, as mentioned before, beef, we're going to use 400 grams today. I've got my sardines prepared here. This is 120 grams. This is how much you will find in a regular size can. I have 3 eggs, and today we're using whole eggs, so it's important to use yolks with the whites when you're feeding raw eggs to your cat, as whites on their own can be a little bit harmful to your cat, so make sure that you use whole eggs. After that, we're going to use some chicken hearts. We have 300 grams of that. And then this is the chicken liver. We've got 260 grams of chicken liver. Oh, and I also almost forgot to mention, we are also using 33 grams of bone meal. If you don't know what bone meal is, it basically substitutes the bone content in the raw food recipes. Cats should eat around 10% of the food as bone. So this substitutes the bone. We don't have a butcher around us who would grind the bone for us, and since this was very unsustainable to go around and try looking for it, this is a lot easier and more consistent for cats. If you've not used it before, this is the brand that we are using. We've been using this ever since we started feeding our cats raw, and we had no problems with that. Naturally, we'll link it down below. Naturally, if your cat is happy to chew through bones, this is the perfect solution. Bluebell unfortunately doesn't like chewing that much. He's fine with bigger pieces of meat that help clean his teeth, but bone is not something that he's keen on. Make me food. Make me food. Okay, let's get to preparing. The order in which you're going to cut the ingredients doesn't matter. I usually start with the biggest meat. Oh, Pixie was just climbing on one. As I was saying, I usually start with the biggest proportion of meat, so I'm going to start with the chicken breast, and I cut it into cubes. They don't have to be the same size, but I do it about 1.5 by 1.5 centimeters. I find that if I cut them smaller, they don't do as good of a job at cleaning teeth. Last time when we went to vet, they mentioned that there was a little bit of a tartar buildup on Bluebell's teeth, and we know why. He doesn't like chewing, so I cut them a little bit bigger ever since. And I have to say, we have seen improvement even after couple batches. His teeth look a lot better, so raw is definitely helping with cleaning his teeth. But naturally, we also started to brush his teeth, which is a video that we promised you a while back. We're still working on it. It's not perfect yet. We managed to brush his teeth from time to time, but it's not. He's not consistent yet. And that was my last chicken breast. Now I'm going to move on to my beef. And even though it's already diced into cubes, some of them might be a little bit too big, so I'm just going to throw it on the chopping board and kind of sort for them. So something like this Pixie would most likely take it out of the bowl and just leave it somewhere on the carpet, knowing her. So I'm just going to cut it like this. And I'm only really looking for pieces like this. Everything else is absolutely fine. They will be more than capable of biting through it. And actually this is quite a nice batch. Everything diced quite well. So I'm just going to add it to the bowl. If you watched this far, you're clearly enjoying the video, so consider poking that like button. It does help the channel a lot. Next up, we have our chicken hearts and liver. You might have noticed on the video that these are frozen. Well, they're actually in the process of defrosting now, so I can use them. Now, this is something I want to talk about because I think it's important. This is the ingredient that we can dose. Because we have it frozen, we have the flexibility that if we go to a shop and certain size the size of a pack of meat is not available, we have the flexibility of buying any other size because we can adjust how much we're going to use of liver or how much we're going to use of the chicken hearts. If you didn't have such an ingredient at home, anything in the freezer, you would have to buy everything fresh, and not always can you buy everything in the right proportions. Therefore, you would end up wasting some of the meat that you buy. So my advice is find an ingredient that is easy for you to freeze. These we buy frozen from our local pet shop, and these have been perfect. They come in a 1 kilo bag, so if you find something like this, your future batches will be a lot easier. And again, if you find meat on a special offer in a bigger pack, bonus. One really quick note on the chicken hearts, they count towards meat content, not the organ like the liver. So I'm just cutting through the bigger pieces. Most of them are actually cut in half or smaller, but I find, again, if we leave them too big, Pixie will just take it out and leave it somewhere in the house. It's not nice to find piece of raw meat lying around the house, so I'm going to go through them and just cut them in half for her.
And this is the guy that doesn't like bone, and I just need to show you him with the cereal that we took out of the kitchen to make it nice for the video.
But Bluebell is too cute not to show him. The chicken hearts are already in the bowl. I'm finished with them and I moved on to the liver. So with the liver, I'm doing things a little bit differently. I'm going to cut them into smaller pieces, just like that, because I find that our cats are sometimes picky. One of them likes liver more than the other. So to avoid them picking between the pieces, I'm going to cut it quite small. If your cat is even more picky, what we used to do purely for convenience, we used to blend it with the egg and sardines, but I find this isn't necessary anymore. I'm just doing this as a precaution. When we do use the blender and blend it together, we tend to call it gravy, cat gravy obviously, and it's actually quite nice when you're starting out your cat on a raw recipe, purely because when you blend the sardines with all the other ingredients, they coat the rest of the meat quite nicely, and as we know, cats love sardines, so every piece of meat smells like a sardine. We did several videos where we used the chicken gravy recipe or technique, if you will, so we're going to link it up here or up here, whichever corner this is. I always get it wrong. Yeah, Mom tells me it's this corner. So once you finish with this video, head over to that video and check out the chicken gravy. Not great chicken gravy, cat gravy. So now I've added all of my meat into the bowl, I'm going to move on to the sardines. Sardines and eggs are two optional ingredients for this recipe, and any recipe really. Sardines, they're great for I lost my voice there, sorry. Sardines are great for one, flavor. Cats naturally love sardines. We find that the ones covered in tomato sauce are better than the ones in oil or brine. Oil is not particularly great for cats, and brine doesn't have the flavor or the smell that particularly interests the cats. But more importantly, they're great because they contain many healthy fats and oils that are good for cats. So I'm just going to use a fork and mash it up like this. When I mash it up like this, I find that it's a little bit easier to mix it well with the rest of the food in the bowl. it's better to sprinkle it. So sprinkle all of the bone meal evenly throughout the batch, and now all we have to do is mix it together. Now there is two options. You're either a veteran of preparing cat food and raw recipes, and you followed the video and you know exactly what's going on, or you're new to this and you're like, oh my god, what is happening? I don't know what I'm doing. If you're one of those, don't worry, we covered everything again in a different video where we go into more detail about what's required for each batch and where the raw recipes come from. So if you want to know a little bit more in depth, we're going to leave a link to the video where we go into that much detail down below. So once you finish with this, you can watch it later and know more about how we create the batches.
So Pixie is just eating exactly the same food from the previous batch. That is the last meal that was left. Oh my god, Matt.
Okay, give me the camera. This cat is something else. Mon was just recording Pixie and he decided to jump on her. What is this guy? Wait, I think he's coming up. Nope. Bluey. He's staying. He's staying. This video has taken an unexpected turn. He looks like he's staying there. Back to the cat recipe. The entertainment is over. So I just mixed all the ingredients well together. You want the bone meal to be mixed really well. You don't want one cat eating more than the other. In general, all the ingredients to be spread throughout the portions quite evenly. So what we have to do now is portion everything and put it into the little containers that will be frozen. One thing you have to get used to is preparing the batch in advance. This is really important because you need to make sure that the meat that you're giving your cats has been frozen before to kill off some of the dangerous bacteria. You can ensure that this process has taken place correctly by leaving the food in the freezer for at least a day. So you don't want to be making food when you run out or when you're about to run out. You want to make it in advance, so planning. Usually Mom takes care of that, I just prepare the food. Anyway guys, this is all I prepared for you in this video. I hope you learned something new today, and more importantly, you feel more confident about feeding your cats raw. We have been feeding our cats raw since we got them, which is over 2 years, and we haven't had any problems with that. So we can definitely recommend this diet. There is lots of health benefits to raw feeding, but I think the best example I can show you is the belly of this cat. Look at Pixie, how fluffy this belly is. Lots of ragdolls, when you look at them when they're on a different diet, the hair or the fluff on the belly is often matted, even though they get brushed frequently. This isn't the case with our cats. They are fluffy throughout, and we are quite sure that this is partially due to the correct diet. So honestly, I couldn't recommend it enough. If you still have any questions or comments, please leave them down below and we'll try to answer as many as we can. If you don't have any questions or comments and you're confident with the recipe, please leave us a chicken emoji down below. It helps the channel grow. And as always, thank you for watching and we'll see you next time. Bye. Meow. Meow. Pixie, come help. Come help. Good kitty.